Good. Hi, everyone. How are you? Thanks for coming back from lunch to see us. Want to thank Renee and Julie and Patrick Sang for having me here today. And as they said, we're going to talk about media in the blockchain era. First, talking about media in general. Let's talk about mediums, everything from print to radio to digital and TV. They all have their own different applications and use cases. So I think Marshall McLuhan really said it best when the medium is the message. And ultimately what this means is to respect the medium that you're working in at that point in time, as opposed to perhaps taking a piece of media from one asset distribution area, such as radio, and trying to turn it into a TV show, or a TV show going into a radio show. Sometimes these things just don't mix. To talk about mediums, I like to talk about TV first. This is television. Would we all agree? Television is basically, its job is to destroy what's left of your imagination by feeding you endless doses of sugar-coated, mindless garbage. I think we all feel that way about television today in many senses. It's just constantly bombarding you with everything from ads you don't care about to programming that you may or may not care about, but in the majority of it, you don't. And the irony is, although it's failed to capture a lot of the youth audience in the television industry, it still grows exponentially. There's been a lot of consolidation in the television industry and the media business in general. And in fact, if you look at, mostly these are US companies, we have about 6 companies total, 5 here are represented, that represent 100% of the US media export worldwide. So ultimately, you have these 6 individuals that control programming that reaches over 1 billion people every single day. That's a tremendous amount. In fact, the number of TV households worldwide started in 2015. They're about 1.5, and the expectation is that it's going to get up to 1.68 billion by 2021. It's pretty fantastic. There is a small growth, but not a lot of dramatic growth happening here at this point in time. Why there's a lot of consolidation going on happens to do with them staving off disruption from a new class of content creator and content distributor. Let's call it the digital ecosystem. And these companies are everyone from Netflix down to YouTube and Reddit. They all have their own different types of ways of doing things, but ultimately they're not running over traditional terrestrial broadcast lines. And again, guys, if you can get presentation mode working here, that would be great. So by comparison, TV, going back again, you have 1.6 billion people worldwide viewership, but in this case, you have one channel on YouTube and one video on YouTube that's has reached 5 billion views and has 22 million subscribers. There's over 100 million channels on YouTube, and there's roughly about 2 billion people that are consuming YouTube on a monthly basis. So all of that is centralized architectures of media distribution, media content creation, and consumption. That means that in a centralized ecosystem, it's all coming from one point of origin or a class of servers going out to the end user, that's you, and it's stored in that location. So in the case of UGC, let's look at YouTube. If you have a channel on YouTube and YouTube was to go down, and we've seen and heard about these blackouts, all of your data is gone or lost. Or in the case of other social networks and video platforms in the past, such as MySpace. How many people had a MySpace page? They had a bunch of video there, they had a bunch of photography there, they had a bunch of their personal writings there. Now all of that is gone because they didn't own that data, they didn't own that textual information, they didn't own that media. It was all in a centralized architecture. Within a decentralized and distributed architecture, you're looking at having multiple nodes throughout the ecosystem in which you're doing checks and balances on that data, as well as the data being stored in multiple locations, and allowing you to control that data yourself. So Blockchain, in general, is extremely pervasive throughout all industries. It's not just media. You can see here a wheel that basically shows you it's touching almost every single vertical that's out there, from charity to energy industry to insurance, legal, media, music streaming, real estate, travel, and so on. It's pervasive. It's a new protocol that is as disruptive and more so than the World Wide Web was in the early 1990s. And that's really one thing you want to remember, that this is a new protocol. It's not the new internet. The blockchain runs off of the internet and a distributed architecture of computers that are a part of the internet. So what's the market growth here, and where are we at this point in time? The chart here will show you where we were with the World Wide Web back in the early 90s and where it went into 2016, and all the different companies along the way, and the internet revolution that reshaped 30% of the global economy. Right now, we are here. We're back in 1995, basically, with the blockchain. So all that wealth creation from the early 90s until now that was done using the World Wide Web protocol, we're just getting started with blockchain technology. Plus, at that time, there were a lot less people on the internet. And now there's a lot more people with a lot more connected devices. We had a lot of discussion about the Internet of Things and smart cities and so on here today and yesterday. And it's just been growing tremendously. There we go. So I want to get more specific in terms of the 5 ways that blockchain could disrupt the media industry. This goes beyond just video. Music and digital rights, micropayments, academic publishing, cleaning up fake news, and advertising, getting more targeted advertising so it's less intrusive to you, the consumer. Music and digital rights. Let's start with smart contracts. Smart contracts is a contract that you write yourself and, in essence, are able to provide with all the people that engage with your intellectual property. So all the revenue or purchases of your creative work can be automatically disseminated based upon those licensing agreements that you write yourself, and the terms that you write yourself, and how you want your content to be used and distributed throughout a blockchain ecosystem. And in order to talk about that effectively, you need to talk about DRM, digital rights management, and attribution. Attribution is basically credits, tracking who has made what so you can determine who needs to get paid for what in terms of their creative works that they've made. So as an example, Spotify last year acquired a company called MediaChain. And they're a digital rights management company that runs on the blockchain. They had a problem. The problem is that Spotify needed to solve a $100+ million lawsuit because they weren't tracking all of the rights management issues of all the songs that were on their platform at that time. They had a flawed system in their centralized architecture. So by buying this company, they're now going to be able to track every single song or every single asset of a song using the blockchain in order to make sure that they can properly compensate those artists. This leads into the next point, which is eliminating digital content, or eliminating digital rights theft altogether. This is an interesting idea. It's starting to get more and more traction. This is where artists could just release their own music, control the data and the terms of their use. And then the royalties will be distributed in real time via smart contracts. But this is something where I can make a song with all of you. We're all singing karaoke one night, and we've come up with an original song, or we're doing a cover. It's one big group song. But then we put it out as a fundraiser, for example, for whatever purposes. The original copyright holder of that track, the musicians who wrote the song, the person who wrote the lyrics, and all of us as singers and participants in making the actual song come alive could be also compensated as a result of this type of engagement. So this leads into the resolution of royalty disputes. There's an initiative called the Open Music Initiative, which is a consortium that seeks to leverage blockchain technology to resolve royalty disputes. In essence, it's an open source protocol for the identification of music rights holders and creators. Again, this is to say, hey, you own this piece of music. this is someone who's participated in the creation of that piece of music, and this is how that piece of music is going to be disseminated in the payment systems therein. So a second way that blockchain is disrupting the media industry is micropayments to monetize content creation. So micropayments create a new monetization model. This means that you can pay as little as a penny or even a fraction of a penny for a piece of media. So instead of paying a subscription or paying for an entire magazine or an entire subscription to a thing like Netflix, for example, you can pay a fraction of a penny just to watch that video or to watch the 5 seconds of the video that you want to see before you move on to the next video. So you're not necessarily having to subscribe or have a membership architecture or even an ad architecture. You're just supporting each one of those assets or a piece of the asset in real time and being able to still have that copyrights holder be compensated. So this opens up the floor to entirely new pricing models and brings down the need for advertising-supported environments and ecosystems, which is what the big six actually are hoping won't happen. So what about advertising? If you are to have some advertising associated with your media, in what way is it going to be utilizing the blockchain in order to do so in an interesting manner? Well, we all want more targeted and less intrusive ads. We don't want ads coming at us that have nothing to do with the content we're looking at or have nothing to do with our particular profile on who we are as individuals. And you're seeing more and more where ads are becoming less like commercials, which you'll see on TV, and more actual programming. So it could be in the form of a music video. It could be in the form of an infomercial, if you will, or infotainment, as we like to call it. It's really very specific to you as an individual. But now using the blockchain, you have a company like the Marketing Group. They launched the very first blockchain-enabled advertising agency. They have a product called Truth that's using Ethereum as an alternate blockchain for its smart contract technology to underpin its media buying and planning platform so clients will be able to see where their money goes. So this is a situation where you have a big advertiser, let's say Procter & Gamble. And Procter & Gamble right now hires a media buying company, but they're not exactly sure how that money is spent. Using the blockchain, you'll be able to track where all the money goes, who's consuming what, how much of it they're consuming, and seeing who's being paid in some instances to actually watch and consume that advertising content that they've put out there through their media buy. So this leads into the compensating of the consumer. This is a radical idea. This is where we pay you to watch our media, whether it's Friends, the TV show, or an actual commercial. The lines are very blurred right now. So you as a consumer could be, using the basic attention token, it's compensating advertisers and users, as an example, for just watching commercials, right? Or watching content that is in the form of commercials or in the form of storytelling narrative commercials. So this is a very big trend that's happening on in this new ecosystem as we're exploring it today. Another interesting area is academic publishing is being re-envisioned. This is all the academic reports that you might read. It's also analyst reports. This is using blockchain in a way that it relates to all stages in the researcher's work. Peer review, reproducibility, attribution credit, trust, access, anonymity where it's necessary. In essence, you can have credit or you don't have to have credit for a research report or an academic publishing report if it requires such. The same thing holds true with regards to a writer or a writer's source in the case of fake news, which I'll get to in a second. So by doing this, you are creating efficiencies across the board for them to actually do collaborative work with these academic publishing papers. So here's a fun part. We all like to talk about fake news. It's been a big topic. There's a company there that is it's called Public. It's working on the Descent Network blockchain. And they're cleaning up what we've all been talking about as fake news and providing alternative facts for that fake news phenomenon. So Publique is a free of charge application for sharing digital content, specifically news and articles. It's done by an independent development team. The rewards are distributed in Publique are based on the reputation of the authors, and the reputation is built exclusively from the views and feedback of its readers. So this is a situation where you're an author, you publish something through the blockchain, and you will get compensated and rewarded based upon the reviews on the article and the feedback of those of the article from the people that have read it, and also how many views has it gotten. So you may get 1 million views and maybe only 100, comments, but if it's all fairly positive, then that's how it's tracking how you would be compensated for your contribution to that article. And it's another idea with ad-free journalism, which a lot of true journalists are looking to get to, because see that journalism is highly impacted by advertising. In essence, a lot of these publications are not publishing articles about corporations because the editors and the publishers of those publications, as well as TV broadcast networks, are scared that they will lose those advertising dollars. So a lot of what you see in television news media and print media obviously is ultimately controlled by the ad dollars that are being spent on those platforms. So this notion of journalism is a very thin notion in 2018. And a lot of the folks that are coming out of journalism school and those who have been diehard journalists for many, many years are looking for alternative ways to have ad-free journalism. So Civil is a community-based managed network for trustworthy and sustainable journalism. This has been formed as a consortium by top editors and writers from the Wall Street Journal, the London Times, the Washington Post, the New York Times, Financial Times, and so on. And in this consortium, they are in essence taking all of the profits that they get and putting it back into more journalistic research and the publication of more what they call clean news and truthful news that's fact-based and has multiple sources that are verified on the blockchain by those sources, and it's all recorded on a ledger. So that's basically my presentation, and I wanted to share with you what we're doing as Decentric Media. You can see that this, as the other presentations at the conference here have proven, blockchain can be a bit confusing. And it's a new emerging space that's got boundless potential. But we need some trusted sources in news and media and broadcast, so we're launching a 24/7 broadcast network that will be global. It's covering the decentralized culture, finance, and tech sector on a worldwide basis. And I'd like to show a video now and introduce you to the network. Here you go. Please play the video.
Back then it was about $100+ per Bitcoin. Today it's 9,000. Is it still rat poison?
Well, probably rat poison squared.
Roller coaster day for cryptocurrencies and what has been a wild week.
A movement is emerging.
This protocol is going to democratize the global financial system in a way where every human being on the planet will have equal access.
Innovators are leading a new era of trust and transparency.
You get to choose where your data goes and where you share.
The world is calling for a new voice. Introducing Decentric Media, a new breed of broadcast network, powered by the community, and the definitive media voice for the decentralized movement. Decentric tells the story of a regenerative world that balances the distribution of wealth, resources, and power to all, covering all the news that's important to you from around the globe.
Here's this hour's top story live from Hong Kong.
Live from Nairobi.
Live from Los Angeles.
Through our exclusive live event coverage, we provide front row access to top global thought leaders.
The blockchain is empowering communities to disrupt the company.
With curated programming from the most respected influencers, market makers, and innovators.
If we are to truly globally connect, we really do have to have a global economy.
The next transformative engine for society may emerge from this.
So you'll never have to waste time scouring through blogs, podcasts, and social media again. Our original programming takes you deeper into the world of blockchain technology, giving exclusive access to the minds behind them with series like ICO Roadshow.
We will have completely changed this industry so anyone participating can maximize their value.
With content translated into multiple languages.
And the biggest challenge we have is to get crypto accepted.
We acquire real-time video from anywhere in the world via a revolutionary distributed video news network and broadcast directly to connected devices everywhere. While the exclusive Decentric Media Crypto Ticker brings together market data from 85 exchanges across 30 countries. And by integrating Telegram instant messaging service, we provide the tools you need to join the conversation in real time. The new era is here. You are the movement. We are the network. We are Decentric Media.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mark, thanks. Have a seat. Let's just
thanks.
have a couple of questions. Sure. Listen, that's fascinating. Is this like CNN for the blockchain era?
Blockcoin, yeah.
Blockcoin, new word, yeah.
We like to say that we're a cross between CNBC and BuzzFeed.
Okay.
CNBC is, I would say, Bloomberg TV light, whereas Bloomberg is really focused on hardcore traders, and day traders. CNBC was a financial news network that came along and opened it up a little bit more. And then they're the most progressive financial news network out there, in my opinion, because they've added actually programming on top of that, things such as Shark Tank and The Profit and so on.
Right.
And what that does ultimately for a network such as that is they're, in essence, introducing the spectator into the financial news sector. Somebody who's not normally watching CNBC, for example, they'll watch Shark Tank, and following Shark Tank, during Shark Tank, and after Shark Tank, they're having updates of what's going on in world markets.
Yep.
So we'll take a similar format approach in that sense, where our original programming will be distinctive, but ultimately we're a news network that's covering those subject matters that we outlined about blockchain, crypto, AI, robotics, futurism, regenerative culture, social impact, cybersecurity, and so on.
Okay.
The BuzzFeed element of it is where we feel all the TV networks have lost a tremendous opportunity, whether they be CNN or CNBC or even ESPN. When you have an app of your TV network that you like, you're still, in most cases, getting an ad-supported experience on that app. And all you're getting is the ability to take that TV network with you on the road. So you'll have a linear feed, you have a bunch of VOD programming, and that's about it. But there's no community element that I will have with the other people who are viewers in that network. So by adding the community element, and our community is very strong and growing. There's 25 million of them, as the slide indicated. And we predict by, not us, but some of the data we've seen is that there'll be 100 million original crypto wallet holders by the end of Q1 of 2019.
Okay.
And we want to promote the adoption of 1 billion by 2022.
So our Japanese friends, age 25, that were there, that some speak English, some don't, and so forth, are they going to be viewers of this? Is this a global community, or is this an American-centric one?
It's absolutely a global community. I'm glad you asked me that question. Another approach that we're taking, which is very distinctive, is most media networks will start in America. America is a big export of media, as I showed in the beginning. And that's not the new way. The new way is to have a global voice and a global media company all in one. So we will be covering content and having coverage from a news bureau out of Tokyo. Right. And through the app or through our television carriers, they'll be able to watch the channel. And through digital cable, just like on an app, you'll be able to select real-time translation of what's going on.
Okay. So for those people in the audience who don't know who you are, who are you? Who's Marc Scarpa, and why you for this opportunity right now?
Well, that's quite a question, Julie. You go right to the point. I think, look, for me, why am I right for this? It's more the question is, why is this the right time for this opportunity?
Okay.
My background is I've been online since 1979. Wow. I've been a consumer of internet protocols and technologies all my life. I've been making video since I was 12, and I've been doing a lot of live participatory media since the early 90s. But in terms of the opportunity for decentric media, what we see is this is the biggest vertical that's untouched right now in the blockchain space, and it's the most important one, because what we have as a challenge in the blockchain space, or the decentralized movement, if you will, is the narrative in traditional media is off. They're talking specifically about the price of Bitcoin every day. They're not, the entrepreneurs that were here today, for example, very hard for them to get coverage on CNBC.
That's right.
Or Bloomberg even. And the type of coverage that they would...
Which is wrong.
Which is wrong. And the coverage that they might get is, okay, come on, tell me what you're doing, great, see you later.
Pat you on the head.
And what we want to do is more short stories like we did at CNET many years ago. I was one of the founding producers there.
Fantastic, I love CNET. My God, okay, great.
Yeah, it did quite well.
It did.
And what it ultimately is it allows people to see, touch, and feel the entrepreneur, what their vision is, understand the stories, and these become news packages. So we need to change the narrative, and we need to do that together. And the best way we see doing that is through a global media brand and a global media company.
Well, what I like about what you're doing is that by having the right conversation, let's face it, we have to have inputs, not just outputs, but by having the right conversation, society can get to the right outcomes faster.
Right.
And we can get to a better common sense, new common sense, whereby we understand to embrace the future, but just think through how it works for everyone. Right? I call it the figure eight. How do we go into the investment cycle and we get everybody out on the other side? And unless we're talking about it, we can't possibly get to the right outcome.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. And another point to add to that is when you look at financial news right now, which really is quite generalist, CNBC and Bloomberg are guilty of this too. They're sitting around waiting for the markets to open. When you're watching their broadcasts, you're sitting there and you're going, okay, they're waiting for the London markets to open, the Asian markets to open. They'll have reporting in between that, but they're dependent upon this finite amount of time for these particular markets open for them to do their reporting. And they're still doing it from a very American-centric point of view. Plus, they're reporting on everything from McDonald's to pork bellies to milk to whatever.
Yeah.
It's all over the board in terms of the different verticals. The reality is this movement and this new revolution, this new protocol revolution that first is taking up adoption in the financial sector, is the number one adoption is financial sector. I mean, blockchain and Bitcoin. Bitcoin runs on a blockchain. It's the first one that's changing everything. Our market never closes. It's 24 hours, 365, everywhere in the world, and it's happened everywhere in the world simultaneously. It didn't start in London or in New York or in Dubai. It's everywhere. It's very pervasive.
Okay, now decentric media, that's business out there. You've bootstrapped, you've raised money for, you're raising money for, it's fully funded. Where are we in the investor development phase?
So we're just finishing up another round right now, a small round. We want some strategic partners here.
Okay.
Ideally, they're folks that understand media and technology and have relationships in their various markets to help with carriage, distribution, and so on.
How much could somebody invest? $1 million to 5, 10, what?
Yep.
Yep.
I would say that I would ask them to talk with Patrick Sang of the Sang Group.
Good.
And
Okay.
work that
All
out.
right. There you go.
But we will be. This is a smaller round for strategics, and we will be doing a security token in 2019.
Okay.
And that will happen probably at the end of Q1, beginning of Q2. We'll start use of proceeds from this round will be launching in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And then from Los Angeles, we'll have reports coming in from around the world. But after we do our secondary round, we'll then open official news bureaus in those markets.
Love it. Love it. Okay.
We
have a question over there. We got a question from Vadim. We got a microphone. There we go.
Are you SEC regulated or no?
We will be, yes. I mean, that's a question as to how the SEC is going to react to security tokens. And right now, the market's shaking out tremendously. I think everybody has seen the price of Bitcoin drop, and they've seen a lot of other coins and tokens go down in value because it's tied to the price of Bitcoin. But my reaction to that is HODL. It's a good time right now to actually invest. Keep in mind, just a couple of years ago, Bitcoin was at $300, and a few years before that, it was at $1. And now, even though it's at 6,000, it's still a tremendously great return. So what's happening, to answer your question, is you have the SEC and other governments around the world that are getting rid of the bad players, those who have really abused the utility token, the philosophies behind it, and are just basically getting rid of the scam artists and putting some regulatory guidelines in place. This is great because now you're seeing real investment, like folks here in the audience, not just Bitcoin millionaires who are then investing in some other weird idea. You're seeing real venture funds being formed. You're seeing real A-list venture players investing in the space. Everyone, from Tim Draper is a perfect example of someone who's done that and is going to do that and continues to do so. So with it all shaking out and some regulatory guidance coming in, security tokens will be the way, or at least the way for a company like ours. As a media company, we need to be as squeaky clean as possible.
Okay, all right.
That's our approach.
Any other questions from the audience for Marc?
None? Geez, so everyone's a media on the blockchain expert now? I know I'm not.
Any predictions for, by the time we do the ninth FT, any predictions for where the world of decentralized media is going to be?
For decentric media or decentralized media?
Decentralized media.
Decentralized media will be a lot more pervasive. Now, ultimately, it's going to be invisible, just like using your web browser now has become, in essence, invisible. There'll be so many different things running on the blockchain that you won't even realize it. Decentralized apps will become very popular over the next year. You're not going to see a decline in ICOs. You're just going to see a conversion of them over into security tokens. I think for media companies on the blockchain, we'll see a lot more artists, especially because the artists lead the way, creating and publishing their works using blockchain technologies so they can track all of their and own all of their digital rights.
But fundamentally, the whole rise of decentralized media is a result of lack of trust.
Totally lack of trust. And now what you'll have is multiple verifications in a governance ecosystem to accommodate that lack of trust. That's where we're going.
What did you make of Face Bank?
Facebook?
Bank. John Textor's Face Bank. The creation of the ability to own the rights to your own face.
Yeah, absolutely. That is probably one of the most important things. It's not just your own face. Your face is part one. It's everything about you. It's how you speak, how you walk, all of your mannerisms, all of your personalized data of who you are as an individual. Everything that you do and will do and have done is recorded somewhere. And the problem right now is that somebody else controls that data on you. So by moving over and getting into a blockchain protocol ecosystem, you will control your own data and how it's utilized. So you can preserve your digital self for generations to come, or if you happen to be famous, you'll be able to reproduce that digital self in multiple
And who knows, maybe that's the step to becoming famous for people who want to, is to basically be able to own it, because if you can't own it, you can't make money from it.
Well, I think YouTube's proven that. You have a lot of folks that became famous from their bedroom. I mean, PewDiePie has got more subscribers and more views than most television broadcast networks, and he does it for the fraction of the price. But he doesn't make as much money, and all of those videos ultimately are controlled by YouTube. And you've seen over the last couple of years, he's gotten into trouble with them and the public at large. And so they have stripped him of some features, which has impacted his ability to continue to flourish and make money. If you remove the centralized distribution system like a YouTube, and you have more of a decentralized architecture, you'll see that that won't happen.
Right.
So they'll be having a direct relationship with their audience, whereas there's this centralized group in between right now.
It seems that all of the, everything which existed for corporations to enable them to transact has shifted to the individual. And this is just really part of it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, Julie. I would also say that corporations are definitely jumping in and getting their hands and feet dirty and wet. You look at Big Blue, you're looking at IBM, for example. They have a $1 billion blockchain initiative. Oracle, same thing. They're moving into the space hard. The data management is an area that they have a lot of expertise in, and now they're looking at ways that they can re-architect their networks and re-architect their software systems to enable SaaS platforms for third parties to build dApps using their systems. But yes, the power goes back to the individual in many ways, or at least that's the hope and the prediction. It was the same dream as the World Wide Web. When it came around, we all looked at the web and said, wow, now I can self-publish. Right? And before there were blogs, there were bulletin boards. And that was a revolution and a huge freedom, and people were able to have livings doing that. But then it became quite commercial. I think that blockchain, at its core, eventually will become quite commercial in a similar fashion, because it's just a matter of time. But at least we'll have a good 20-year run or so, and most importantly, you get to own your data. That's the most important part.
Have you followed what Tim Berners-Lee is doing with Inrupt?
I haven't. I've heard the announcement, and he's a genius for having created HTTP protocol, obviously. But
well, what I can't figure out is if he's trying to help individuals own their own data at that level of the web, and other initiatives at the blockchain. For me, it's just a question of, well, where are we in the stack, right? Where do I need to go? At what level do I need to establish property rights for my own data? Is it at the web level? Is it at the blockchain level? Or do I just need to hire my own personal lawyer here to establish property rights? Is there a class action lawsuit coming out of Los Angeles soon? But it seems like that's the big battleground right now, is how do we get property rights established for individuals and their own data?
Yeah, I think that there'll be, as funny as it sounds, there's going to be an app for that very soon, or I would call it a DApp, a decentralized app. And it could run.
Decentralized app is a DApp. I love it.
It could run on a public blockchain or a private blockchain. You know, the web is all-encompassing of everything, but there's actually multiple versions of the web. There's web, which we're all on, and there's Web 2. Which is still used by academics, and there's dark web, which we've all heard of, that hackers and people use. It's unsecured, and you have to access it using a Tor browser. Blockchain, you can create your own blockchain. So if you're using a DApp as an individual to preserve all of your data and all of your individual information, whether it's pictures, video, text, your activity, your browsing habits, all of that would be then distributed out through potentially tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of servers. So it's not centralized in one place, meaning at the end of the day, it's not going away.
I know it's on.
And even if all of those servers, even if a few of those servers were to go down, you would still have it preserved. As opposed to, you've seen Facebook blackouts, you've seen YouTube blackouts. And if those businesses somehow eventually go away, then all of that information is lost.
Well, we want to be the light web, and I could talk to you all afternoon. I really appreciate you making the trip out here. Is there a final word for our audience? Anything final that you'd like to share with the FT Dubrovnik Group?
I'd like to say thank you for being here. It's been a wonderful couple of days, and the community's been tremendous, and appreciate the opportunity to present to you all.
You were fantastic.
Thanks,
Thanks
Julie.
very much. Really appreciate it.
I get the free kiss?
Yeah, absolutely. You bet. 2 times.